Welcome to the At Heart YouTube channel where we share tactical advice to help you grow your small business. I am Brighton Udy, and if you'd like to stay up to date on all of our future videos, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and also the little bell to stay up to date. In this video, I'm going to share the 5 steps that you can take in order to build your brand. So one thing I'm asked quite often is, how do you start to build a brand? Like, what are the steps that you go through in order to build a brand? In a previous video, when we talked about branding versus marketing, we identified that branding is a very ambiguous word, and it can seem a little confusing about what it actually takes in order to build a great brand. What we also identified in that earlier video is that the #1 rule in branding is consistency. In order to build a desired reputation for our companies, our personal brands, our brands as artists, we have to make sure that we use consistent messaging, consistent imagery, consistent design, so that we can consistently build that reputation in our customers' minds. So that's really the overarching theme in all of branding. Any branding exercise that we run any client through, the main goal is to create consistency and work towards a desired reputation for that company or that entity or that person. So I'm going to share the 5 steps in order to help you build a strong brand. Step 1 is determining what your brand stands for. We call it the brand spirit. It's a collection of meaning systems that we create and use as a guide when building out the rest of the brand. It's important to work these pieces out prior to designing anything or implementing any marketing, because if you don't have an idea of what your brand stands for and what your brand is trying to accomplish and who your brand is really trying to speak to, you're going to make decisions that are not in line with the reputation that you're wanting to achieve. So we start with what we call the brand spirit, which is made up of 4 core concepts. The first one is the why. The why is really the guiding force for all of the businesses or brands' decisions. An author, Holocaust survivor, and psychiatrist by the name of Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. There have been countless other books. Simon Sinek did his book with Start With Why. And there's been a lot of studies around the power of the question why. Viktor Frankl uncovered that if we have a why that is strong enough, we can overcome nearly any how. So articulating what your brand's why is incredibly important in order to help you continuously push through any adversity that your brand or your business faces. It's important for your staff and your team to understand and absorb the why, and it also become a part of their professional why. Just as a random example, if you were a company that sold GPS trackers for pets, your why would likely be to protect and save the millions of furry family members around the world. It's powerful, it's impactful, and it's something that the entire team can buy into. So that's the first piece of the brand spirit. The second piece is identifying your superpower. So what is the thing that sets you apart from your competition? What makes you better than any other option out there in the marketplace? And what makes you the right organization to help your perfect customer solve their problems? So what is that superpower? What is that unique ability that your business is able to provide to your perfect customers that's going to make their lives better? So what's that one thing that separates you from the competition? So that's the second piece of the brand spirit. So the third piece of the brand spirit is the core principles. And the core principles are really the function of tying our values to our actions. One of my favorite books of all time is Principles by Ray Dalio. And he articulates both his life and work principles that have led him to extreme success in the financial markets. He owns, I believe it's the largest hedge fund in the world right now. And he's done very well by following these principles. What Ray Dalio talks about in his book is having principles that help you connect your actions to your values. So the principles really help you make calculated decisions to work towards a desired goal or a desired outcome. In the context of branding, we want to have core principles that help us work towards the desired reputation that we want for our brand. An example of a principle that could be used for a company would be along the lines of customer service expectations. If you're wanting to be the leader in customer satisfaction in your industry, you're gonna have to take consistent actions. Your team's gonna have to take consistent actions in order to develop that reputation. So developing those core principles that your brand is going to have as a foundation is incredibly important to build into your brand spirit. And finally, the last piece, the fourth piece of the brand spirit, is your perfect customer. I've talked about it a little bit here, but understanding who you're really talking to and articulating who that is vitally important. If you're crafting marketing messages without having an idea of who you're actually talking to, it's an absolute waste of time. No business, no entity, no brand can be a fit for absolutely everyone. Every brand, every business has a target customer. It's vitally important to understand who your perfect customer is because, as you'll see in later steps, you need to have an idea of who you're talking to so that you can develop messages and images and marketing campaigns that speak to your perfect customer. Obviously, you're likely serving many different customer segments, and that's okay, but we want to focus on one person. It is so much easier to think about crafting a marketing message, especially when you have a small team, when you have a certain person in mind, when you have a certain personality and value system of an individual that you can craft messages for. And by crafting those messages in that way, naturally you're going to attract different customer segments as well. So that is the fourth piece of the brand spirit. It's really that perfect customer and identifying who you are really trying to connect with, the problems of the person that you are really trying to solve. So that's the brand spirit. That's step one. Step one is really identifying what your why is as a brand. Step two is identifying what your superpower is and what makes you different from your competition. Step three of the brand spirit is figuring out what your core principles are. What are those consistent actions that you're going to take that are going to create that desired reputation for your brand? And then finally is articulating who your perfect customer is. Who is that person that you're really trying to connect with? So that is step one, is really identifying what your brand stands for and what your brand's spirit is. Step two of developing your brand is understanding and assigning a personality to your brand. I really like to think of brands as people. If we can think of our brand like a person, it's a lot easier to give it a voice and give it a consistent personality that we can then start to use to articulate and communicate on behalf of our brand. We can inject that personality into our marketing. The first step of developing your brand personality is giving it some character traits, something that you can refer back to and start to develop that persona and that personality of your own brand. Some great examples of brand personalities that you would definitely recognize would be Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola sells brown sugar water. And the problem that they solve is likely thirst and a sugar craving. That's really the problem that they solve. But that's not all they communicate in their marketing. They are a brilliant, if not the best brand in the world as it comes to the personality that they inject in their marketing. We would identify Coca-Cola as a lover brand. They're so focused on relationships, not only in their products, but also in their marketing. I mean, Santa Claus and a family of polar bears are their mascots, for heaven's sakes. So When we're thinking about what type of personality we want to give our business and our brand, it's important to think about our perfect customer. That's why we start with the perfect customer in the brand spirit. So step 2 is really figuring out what your brand's personality is. And then once we've identified those character traits, then we start to figure out what the brand's consistent voice is. What is the tone that we're going to use? What is the language we're going to use? What is the character or persona of this entire voice? And what is the purpose of our messages that we're going to be sending out? This needs to be consistent across the board. Most businesses have several different team members working on communications on behalf of the brand. You might have somebody doing social media or just working on one social media account. You may have somebody writing press releases or email campaigns. And what's important is if a communication is being sent out and published on behalf of the brand itself, it should have a consistent voice. Our perfect customers and our audience need to be able to identify who is communicating to us. For example, Doritos' voice is so unique. They're so off the wall, super random, and even some of their Super Bowl commercials are just so wacky. But if they started to talk a little bit more like Coca-Cola and focus a little bit more on relationships, that would come across as super disingenuous and super weird, right? So we want to make sure that we're consistently communicating in the same voice and using the same personality as well. So that is part 2, is creating a personality for your brand. So step 3 of developing your brand is writing your brand story. As humans, we really consume information in a very structured way. Our brains are programmed to understand and consume and store information via story. Story is the best vehicle to hack the brain into understanding and consuming information that we really want to know. So when we're crafting our marketing messages, we want to make sure that we're using a story formula in order to communicate those thoughts and ideas to our perfect customer. We also connect to information and stories that directly pertain to us. If there are problems or issues or news that directly affects us personally, we're so much more likely to engage, so much more likely to pay attention, and so much more likely to remember the information that we're hearing. We're more likely to remember the story that we're being told. So when we're crafting marketing messages, we have to put our customer, our perfect customer, in the center of that story. The author of Building a Story Brand, Donald Miller, does an incredible job of teaching and communicating how we take story and a proven story format and use that as a tool and an asset in our brand building actions, in our marketing communications, in our branding. So what does that look like? Well, the main focus is making sure that your customer is the main character of your story, not your brand. I'm going to say that one more time. Your perfect customer needs to be the main character of your story, not your brand. Let's think of Star Wars as an example. Luke Skywalker is the main character of the story, and that's going to be your perfect customer. So we need to articulate what his struggles are, what his obstacles are, and how he's going to go from a boy on a farm being raised by his aunt and uncle into a Jedi Master. There's a lot of space in between, but that's where he is now, and that's the desired outcome that he wants to have, right? That's the transformation that he wants to go through. But there are obstacles that he's going to face along the way. So we need to identify what the perfect customer, Luke Skywalker's, problems are, and communicate that we understand what those problems are in our marketing. That needs to be listed throughout our website, any ads that you're doing on social media. The main focus needs to be around what their problem is. We need to communicate that we understand what that problem is. That's step 1. So we have our main character, we understand what their problems are, and then we can position our brand as the mentor to help them achieve the transformation that they're looking for in their lives. That can honestly be a leaky pipe being fixed. It can be becoming a better marketer. It can be going from hungry to not hungry. Those are problems that we can solve. But we need to identify the problem first for our perfect customer, and then position ourselves and our products and our services as the mentor and the plans in order to help them see the desired transformation that they're wanting in their life. And then finally, at the end of that story, that's when we need to articulate what that perfect transformation is. What is the success that they're going to feel? What's the failure on the other side if they don't actually take action and purchase or place an order? So that's the structure. Main character, articulate their problem, position ourselves or your brand as the mentor, and then give them a plan to help them transform into what they're hoping to become. So that is step 3 of developing your brand, is that consistent story. That story should be told everywhere. It should be told on your website, your social media bios, your email signatures, on the back of your business cards. It should be told everywhere, and it should be told consistently. Because the more that you communicate what you do and how you help somebody succeed or go through a desired transformation, the more they're gonna remember you. And like I said at the beginning of this step, your brand needs to be positioned as the mentor, not the main character. And articulating the problems that our perfect customer is going through is going to make this story pertain directly to them. And it's going to help them remember your story, it's gonna help them remember you, and it's gonna help you grow your business, because when they have that problem pop up in their life, they're gonna think of you first in order to help them solve it. So step 4 is then designing your brand aesthetic. I think this is what people think of most when they think of branding. It's your logos and your colors and your typography. I think it's really what branding is kind of known for, which is great because it is a very important part of building your brand. So again, if we use the example of your brand as a person, this would be the part of what they wear, how they dress, how they cut their hair, how they speak, right? That's that part. So if we think of the brand as a person, first we have the spirit. So what is their internal drive, their internal belief system? What does that person stand for? 2 is the personality. So what do they act like? What do they talk like? You know, what sort of quirks do they have? 3rd is their story. So what do they have to say? Then part 4 is how they look. So if we keep in that theme, we want to make sure that the logos, design, the colors, the typography, the imagery that we use for your brand is in line with your spirit, in line with your personality, and in line with your brand story. By having those 3 pieces done first, it'll make the design process that much easier because you'll have somewhere to draw from. You'll have meaning systems, you'll have direction, you'll have inspiration that is in line with what you're trying to achieve. It'll also help by creating images and logos that also connect with your perfect customer, right? Your perfect customer needs to be front of mind throughout the entire branding process. So that's step 4. The key things that I would make sure that you have in your brand is using a consistent logo, consistent colors, and I wouldn't use too many. I would maybe use 3 different colors max, and maybe have a black and a white or a dark and a light option added. So that would be 5 in total, but you don't want to have too many colors, right? You want to be known for something. You want to be known and easily identified. So having too many colors is not a good thing, but having a select few colors is really important. Typography is the same thing. This might be the biggest mistake that I see businesses make from the brand aesthetic and brand design standpoint, is they have way too many typefaces going on. They use way too many. I honestly saw one this morning where it was just a list of random fonts. Some were script, some were sans serif, some had a serif in them. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about and what the difference is, Google it. The difference between these typefaces is insane. And it's super confusing when you are printing brochures and you've got a design on your website and you're using something else in graphic images on social media. there's no consistency there. So we want to make sure that we have one, maybe two typefaces that we are using in our brand. We need to use consistent headers, a consistent body font. That helps. It's a really, really underrated brand asset, and I think is incredibly important that a lot of small businesses miss. So that is another piece. And then again, it's just making sure that you're using the same logo and have logo standards. So it's not being stretched, it's not having a drop shadow drop behind it, it's not being used with the wrong colors in your brand. The consistency needs to be there. So having your logo, colors, typography, all structured and laid out in a consistent manner and used in a consistent way is very important. So that is step 4 of developing your brand, is creating a clear and consistent brand aesthetic that reflects your brand spirit, personality, and story. And then step 5, the final step of building your brand, is implementing it. All up until this point, we've been talking about ways to help you build your brand and create it. So from the brand spirit, the personality, the story, and the brand aesthetic, that's all the work that you do prior to sharing it with the world, to implementing it through all of your marketing mediums. So implementing your brand, it includes everything from websites, social media, email campaigns, advertising, your physical location, absolutely everything. And it should be consistent in every single medium. So when somebody walks into your store or your physical location or your office, does the lobby or the storefront make you really feel what you're trying to communicate in your brand spirit and your brand story and your personality of your brand? It's something that you really should be thinking about. And that goes for social media, having consistent, focused design and content that you're creating should be really helping your perfect customer. Your email campaign should be using the same brand voice and the same colors for buttons. It's all in the details. So having the spirit, the personality, the story, and the aesthetic done before gives you a reference point to start implementing your brand in a consistent way. So there you have it. Those are the 5 steps to build your brand. 1, you start with your spirit. It's understanding what your brand stands for, articulating what your why is, who your perfect customer is, what your superpower is, what your core principles are. 2nd is giving your brand some personality. It's understanding what your brand's voice is and giving your brand some unique character traits that your brand is going to consistently implement and separate you from your competition. 3 is developing and writing your brand story. It's making sure that your perfect customer is the main character and main focus of your brand story, and articulating that you understand what their problems are and that you have a plan in order to help them transform and overcome those problems. Step 4 is building out your brand aesthetic. It's giving your brand a design, a face that really reflects the spirit, personality, and story of your brand. That includes your logo, typefaces, colors, and beyond. Finally, number 5 is implementing your brand. So that's through social media, your website, email campaigns, physical location, advertising, and so on. Everywhere that your brand is shared should be consistent and follow your spirit, personality, story, and brand design. I hope that this video has really helped you build your brand. If you feel like you're still sort of stuck and not quite being able to understand how to implement your brand, how to craft your brand spirit, how to create a brand personality, and how to write your brand story, I have something I really want to share with you. It's called the Brand Clarity Masterclass online course. It's a self-guided video course filled with over 2 hours of guided video content, a comprehensive workbook to guide you through each exercise, and it helps you complete our brand clarity framework. It's a very clear, very easy to understand, and very easy to implement tool that we use with every single one of our clients. The brand clarity framework walks through your brand spirit, personality, story, And also, in this course, we have added bonuses, which include how to implement your brand aesthetic, so how to create that design. We also have a secret website layout that we share with you and walk through to make sure that you're communicating your brand story incredibly effectively. And we also have another added bonus, which is our social media cheat sheet, which gives you a content plan and a social media strategy that you can immediately start using to implement your brand consistently. Hiring a marketing agency or a branding agency like my own, At Heart Branding Co., costs thousands upon thousands of dollars. Our one-on-one private sessions start at $5,000. That's where we start for dedicated support and one-on-one consultation. But in this course, you can get all of the exercises, all of the guidance, all of the value from a one-on-one private session that starts at $5,000 for $499. If this is something that you're really interested in and feel you could get a ton of value from, because let me tell you, this is a ton of value packed in this tight little course, you need to click the link in the description. I will put it down there, the Brand Clarity Masterclass, and the link to the course, and you can get started on building your brand right now. So I hope you register from the course, find confidence, find clarity in your marketing, and I will see you next week here on the At Heart Co. YouTube channel, where we share more tactical advice to help you grow your small business.